Warning, this what if contains graphic descriptions of gore, violence, and other disturbing imagery. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, what's up everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here. And I got a brand new video for you. Welcome to part 2 of King's Game. Much like part 1, this video is extremely violent. So please be careful. With that being said, let's get this video going, shall we? Player number 4 must cut off one of their legs within 2 hours, or 6 random players will be punished. After adjusting his glasses and swallowing his nerves, Ida made his way to the storage room. He couldn't exactly use his bare hands to complete his order. "Ida, you aren't actually..." Midoriya pleaded. "There's no other way. Following the orders is the only way to avoid unnecessary deaths," Ida said without hesitation. Ashido stood abruptly and angrily, leaving the blanket-wrapped Kirishima alone. Bakugo took her place to help Red Riot recover. "That's a lie and you know it! Tsuyu followed her order and she's now dead! Tokoyami did what he was told and now Yama died in the process! Koda followed his order and killed Aizawa as a result. Who's to say that you or others won't die if you make yourself an amputee?" Ida thought for a moment, his eyes drifting to his legs. His gaze returned to Ashido, a confident smile on his face to mask his overwhelming terror. "The lives of 6 of my classmates and teacher in exchange for one of my legs? I'm willing to make that trade." "Will you need any help?" Todoroki asked. "No, I can do this on my own, but I would appreciate your help after it's done to cauterize the wound." Todoroki nodded. Despite the poker face the half-and-half teen was maintaining, he was just as anxious as everyone else. Ida entered the storage room, closing the door behind him. Once inside, the class rep grabbed a length of rope, a saw, and some cloth to bite down on. He noticed his hands were shaking. It was quiet for a short while in the main room as the timer for Ida's order ticked away. Then the sounds of muffled screaming came through the door. Everyone was disgusted by the pained noises they could only just make out. But Shoji had it the worst. Because of his quirk, Shoji could hear everything Ida was doing. The cutting and tearing of flesh, the breaking of ligaments, the harrowing yet muffled screams. Despite everything happening behind closed doors, Shoji could make out everything as though he was right there with Ida. It almost made the duply armed teen throw up. Everyone started to get worried when the timer had 20 minutes remaining. But then... obedience confirmed. The storage room door opened, and everyone jumped when Ida's severed leg was tossed into the main room. Ida entered slowly shortly after, leaning heavily on the doorframe. The rope was still tied around what remained of his right leg, just above the knee. Despite how tightly the makeshift tourniquet was secured, blood still spilled from the wound, dripping to the floor. Done. Todoroki was at Ida's side before the cleanup timer started. He got Ida to sit on the floor. Blood was already beginning to pool under the stump. "Get ready. This'll hurt," Todoroki warned. "It can't be any worse than what I just did." Todoroki immediately used his right hand to cauterize Ida's wound. He didn't want to give Ida a chance to think about it. Ida yelped in shock as the wound was burned closed, but was quick to bite his tongue. The smell of burnt flesh and blood began to permeate throughout the room. Ida did his best not to black out from the pain, but it was clear to all that the class rep would lose consciousness at any moment. While that was going on, everyone else focused on cleaning the spilled blood and severed limb. It didn't take long for the next order to appear. Everyone rolls a set of 6-sided dice. If a player rolls a 7 or higher, the player is safe. If a player rolls a 6 or lower, that player will be punished. No one was really sure what to make of this one. They were going to put their lives in the hands of random chance? Were there even any dice they could use? After a set of dice was found from the storage room, Yaoyorozu made her own set of dice that looked nearly identical to the found set of dice, but with a key difference. Her dice were loaded to land on 9 every time. She didn't know if the king would punish her for this, but she was willing to take the risk. Ashido was the first to roll. She got an 11 and was relieved. The dice were handed to Ida, who rolled them weakly. He rolled a 6. There was little time to react as an unseen attack cleaved through Ida's neck. Blood splattered outward, scattering red across the floor and students. A red X covered Ida's portrait as the light left his eyes. Ojiro picked up the dice, noticing Ida's blood had splattered on them. He was hesitant, but rolled anyway. It was a 9. Ojiro didn't know he had been holding his breath until he let out an exacerbated sigh. Bakugo grabbed the dice and rolled them quickly. They landed on 11. He was safe. The explosive blonde handed the dice to Kirishima. The frostbitten redhead took the dice with both hands and tossed them. They clattered to the floor and landed on 7, just making the cut. Tokoyami grabbed the dice, rolling them with a blank stare in his eyes. His roll landed on 9. "Damn it," he said in disappointment. Midoriya gave the raven teen a disturbed look as he grabbed the dice and made his roll. He got a 7. He too was just barely safe. Sero took the dice with confidence and rolled without fear. When the dice rolled 2, he was filled with panic. A red line appeared vertically down Sero's body. The two halves of cellophane fell apart, spilling gore and guts everywhere. A red X appeared over Sero's picture. Ashido wanted to scream at the sight, but her voice failed her. No one moved for several moments. Then Yaoyorozu grabbed the dice. While everyone was distracted by Sero's death, she switched out the original dice for the set she made. She threw her roll, believing her deception would work. Everyone heard the dice hit the floor and they landed on 9. A smile came across everyone's faces, but Todoroki noticed the dice didn't have any signs of blood on them. Not even a smear of crimson could be seen. Yaoyorozu burst into flames. The fire consumed her clothes and body, causing the stench of charred flesh to fill the space. Everyone was confused as they backed away in fear. Yaoyorozu had rolled high enough to pass. She should have been spared from punishment. As the vice representative's screams died with her, a new message appeared on the central monitor. Honey is a free browser add-on available on Google, Opera, Firefox, Safari. In short, if it's a browser, it has Honey. Honey automatically saves you money when you check out on sites like Amazon, Papa John's, Kohl's. Wherever you shop, it's a good chance that Honey can save you money. All you have to do when you're checking out at these major sites is click that little orange button and it will scan the entire internet and find discount codes for you. It takes 2 clicks to install Honey. Now, anytime you check out, Honey will scan the entire internet and find coupon codes for you. If there's a coupon code, they will find it. And if there's not a coupon code, you can rest assured that you are getting the best price possible, and there literally is not one available on the internet. If you install Honey right now, you can save like $50 to $100 on your shopping doing nothing. There's literally no reason not to install Honey. It just takes 2 clicks. 10 million people use it, 100,000 5-star reviews. Unless you hate money, you should install Honey. Player number 20 has been punished for using loaded dice. Please do not let this happen again. The fake dice lit ablaze and turned to ash, just like the remains of Momo Yaoyorozu. Somehow, the real dice remained intact, unmarred by the flames. Shoji fished the dice from the ashes. His hands were shaking as he held the still warm dice. He knew there was a little over 60% chance he'd get a 7 or higher, but those odds still scared him. He rolled the dice all the same, and they landed on 3. Shoji closed his eyes and waited for the end. He felt something cold pass through his body several times. Then there was nothing. All but Tokoyami screamed as Meizo Shoji disintegrated into a mess of diced flesh. At this point, Tokoyami had grown numb to seeing his classmates mercilessly killed. The Raven teen dug through his friend's remains to find the dice. After wiping some of the blood off, he handed the dice to Koda. The timid boy looked very nervous. This order won't end until all of us have rolled. The sooner we all roll, the sooner it ends. Now take your turn. Kota reluctantly took the dice and rolled them quickly. He kept his eyes closed, not wanting to see his results. No one made a noise as Kota's roll got him a total of 5. Suddenly, Kota's eyes opened wide. He made desperate gasping noises as he clawed at his throat. An unseen hand gripped around his neck. Midoriya wanted to help his classmate, attempt to save him, anything. The freckled teen was sick and tired of watching his friends suffer, and, in Midoriya's mind, suffocation was a horrible way to go. Jiro didn't even wait for the life to leave Kota's body. She picked up the dice and rolled. Unfortunately, they landed on 5 as well. Well, shit. Jiro's head spun round and round and round, twisting in an unnatural and paranormal way. The skin tore as it reached its limit, and her head fell off her shoulders. Her body slumped to the floor as blood spilled from her open neck. Her face still had an annoyed and frustrated expression as it rolled across the ground. Although Sato was wary, he picked up the dice and got ready to roll. He gave the dice a good and hearty shake before tossing them. They clattered across the floor and landed on 3. There was a moment of calm before Sato clutched his chest in agony. He couldn't breathe and he was sweating bullets. Sugar Man passed a few minutes later after suffering from his heart attack. The last one to roll was Todoroki. Doing his best to maintain what little composure he had left, he picked up the dice and made his roll. The half-and-half teen didn't let go of his breath until he saw the dice read 9. Obedience confirmed. The cleanup timer began again. Knowing that the mess before them would take quite a while to clean, the remaining students got to work disposing of their friends' bodies. The only portraits that weren't marked with a red X were Ashido, Ojiro, Kirishima, Tokiyami, Todoroki, Bakugo, and Midoriya. The cleaning got wrapped up with 10 minutes to spare. Ashido had been fuming the entire time. She'd been bottling up what she'd been thinking and feeling since the first death of the game, and that volcano was ready to explode. This is bullshit! I hate this! Why can't this twisted game just end already? I swear I would do anything just to get out of here! Come on, Ashido! You don't mean that! Midoriya tried to reason with her. You don't know that! For real! I'd commit murder if it means I'd get out of here! Ashido yelled back. The central monitor gave a new order. Player number 2 must kill any 2 or more of their classmates within 20 minutes, or they will receive punishment. Player 18 must protect their classmates at all costs, or they will receive punishment. The deafening silence was almost suffocating. Midoriya didn't move while the others backed away from Ashido, her face shadowed and unreadable. Ashido? Please? Whatever it takes. I will end this game! Ashido tried to move in for an attack, but Midoriya got in her way. The freckled teen remained on the defense. Based on how Ashido was acting, he knew words wouldn't get through to her. Bakugo carried Kirishima on his back to keep him safe because he'd be an easy target. The explosive blonde was frustrated because he didn't know if he was allowed to fight back. Todoroki was equally frustrated. He could trap Ashido in ice in less than a second, meaning a victory for Midoriya. But that would mean that Ashido would be... An acid spray was thrown at Ojiro. He blocked the attack with his tail, earning a burn instead of the alternative. The acid cut deep through the flesh, going to bone. It's clear that Ashido was playing for keeps. Midoriya eventually found an opening to tackle Ashido to the ground. She thrashed in his grip like a cornered animal. She wasn't acting out of anger or hatred. It was pure terror. Ashido, you don't have to do this! We'll find a way out! You don't know that! Get off me! Ashido grabbed Midoriya's arms and began burning them with her quirk. It didn't take much to make the young man scream. He retracted, releasing Ashido and seeing his arms now had deep, hand-shaped burns. Pinky took that moment of weakness to send a high-pressure stream of acid at Tokiyami. Dark Shadow did its best to protect Tokiyami, but the bird boy got hit all the same. His face and chest became covered in acid, melting to the bone. He died from shock and pain, his portrait gaining a red X. That was one down for Ashido. Just one to go. "Tokiyami, no!" Midoriya screamed. Donning full cowling, Midoriya blitzed Ashido and threw her into a wall. He had to take this seriously if he wanted to prevent any more deaths. As much as he despised the idea, Midoriya was going to have to go on the offensive. 20 minutes couldn't have gone by any slower. Midoriya's clothes were burned from the acid, as was his skin and flesh. Ashido had severe bruising across her body and possibly some broken or fractured bones. The combat stopped when a soft buzzer rang out. All eyes turned to the monitor. Player 18, obedience confirmed. Player 2, obedience failed. Ashido was petrified. No, I don't want to die! Her body began to dissolve as though she were drenched in acid. She lurched towards her classmates, her liquefying form creating a trail behind her. Help me! I don't want to go! Her voice became more garbled as her form dissolved. She eventually was nothing more than a fleshy and bloody puddle. Everyone spent a few moments in silence, taking in what just happened. The cleanup timer began. Remains were collected, and wounds were tended to. It was difficult to dispose of the Ashido puddle, but they managed to throw her down the furnace chute before cleanup time ran out. It wasn't long until the next order appeared on the screen. Player 15 must burn their face within 20 minutes, or 4 random players will be punished. Todoroki groaned, a mixture of annoyance and frustration and stress. He didn't give anyone a moment to talk him out of it. He placed his left hand on his right cheek, not covering his eye, and used his fire. No one had time to react as the flames licked at Todoroki's face. The half-and-half teen barely made a noise of pain or discomfort. After half a minute, Todoroki removed his flaming hand from his face. There was a fresh and blistering hand-shaped burn on his right cheek. Obedience confirmed. Now my face is almost symmetrical, Todoroki joked, which actually managed to get a slight chuckle out of Bakugo, Ojiro, and Kirishima. The next order didn't appear until after Todoroki's face was tended to. Player 17 must kill their best friend with their own hands, or both players will be punished. Bakugo had been hanging on to Kirishima since Ashido fought Midoriya. Bakugo couldn't hide his gasp of shock and fear. To murder Kirishima to save him? It seems so counterintuitive. His grip around Red Riot tightened without him realizing it. Bakugo, you gotta do it, or we're both dead. But, no buts. Aizawa told us to follow the king's orders, and we all agreed to do that. Besides, I don't mind biting the bullet if it means I can keep my friends safe. You could hit me in the head with your AP shot, right? That should take me out quickly, huh? Bakugo was conflicted. He didn't want to kill Kirishima, anyone but Eijiro. However, the shark-toothed redhead would probably suffer something worse than death if Bakugo didn't follow through. Reluctantly, Bakugo agreed with his friend's proposal. Kirishima stood with his back against the wall, ready to take the hit despite his fears. Bakugo stood not too far away and readied his shot. He couldn't stop looking at Kirishima's face. The redhead had a grin on his face, that stupid shark-tooth grin. Bakugo tried to aim at his friend's face as he charged the blast, but he couldn't get his hands to stop shaking. He couldn't find the strength to fire the shot without closing his eyes. AP shot! He shouted as he held back tears. The explosion echoed loudly throughout the small concrete space. When Bakugo opened his eyes, he saw that he had missed Kirishima's head. His hand had dropped as he fired his shot. A massive hole was blown through Kirishima's chest. The red head looked down at the wound before returning his gaze to Bakugo. Kirishima was still smiling. You missed, Baku bro. Kirishima coughed up a mouthful of blood before falling to the floor, dead. Obedience confirmed. The cleanup timer started. Bakugo took care of Kirishima's body alone, leaving the others to deal with the blood that got left behind. Ojiro might have been imagining it, but he thought he could see tears welling up in Bakugo's eyes. Once everything was clean and the final four assembled in the main room, the next order appeared. All players must tell their most personal secret to everyone within 20 minutes. Those who do not share their secret or lie about their secret will be punished. If a player tells another player's secret, both players will be punished. The 4 remaining students were confused by how tame the order seemed. None of them were sure who should go first, so they were silent for the first 2 minutes. Bakugo spoke up first. Fine then, I'll go first. I have a backup plan if being a hero somehow doesn't work out. I'll go to the best culinary school in the country, then open my own restaurant that'll become world famous. No one was really expecting that from Bakugo. Then again, he was really good at cooking and seemed to enjoy it. Todoroki went next. My secret is about my father. The training he put me through when I was a child was more like abuse in disguise. He isolated me from my siblings and would physically abuse my mother when she tried to protect me. I hate him. I hate that man for everything he did to me, my siblings, and especially my mother. This came as a shock to everyone, even Midoriya. The freckled teen knew that Todoroki's childhood wasn't that great, but he never really knew the details. Ojiro went next. Well, remember when Koda was ordered to kill Aizawa? I don't think I'd be able to take a life, even if my life depended on it. After the words left his mouth, Ojiro's head twisted 180 degrees. He fell to the floor dead, as a red X covered his portrait. While Bakugo and Todoroki contemplated what Ojiro's lie meant, Midoriya realized that he only had one big secret, and it involved the former #1 pro hero. Bakugo already knew the secret, but he didn't know what Todoroki would do with that information, or the king for that matter, since he was most likely seeing and hearing everything going on in the room. Midoriya made his decision. There was no other option for him. I can't tell my secret. Both Bakugo and Todoroki were confused. The blonde thought for a moment before realizing what secret Deku would have to spill. He couldn't tell Midoriya's secret. There'd be no point. Both of them would be punished if he did. Hey, come on, Deku. Now's not the time to be messing around. Just tell us already. I can't. It'd be dangerous if anyone found out. Your life's on the line. No secret could be worth that. I'd have to disagree. This secret is too important. Bakugo grabbed Midoriya by the shirt. Despite the threatening action, the green-haired boy didn't flinch or falter. Listen here, nerd! You're dead if you don't talk! Who cares if Icy Hot knows? Kacchan, as far as we know, the king has been monitoring us the entire time we've been here. You know why I can't say it. Damn it! Don't be stupid! You're not supposed to die, Izuku! To say that Midoriya was shocked to hear Bakugo call him by his given name would be an understatement. All right, fine. I'll say it. This relieved Bakugo, and he let go of Midoriya. I'm All Might's secret love child! Before the other 2 players could react, Midoriya's limbs and head exploded off his body. Blood sprayed all over the room. Bakugo was practically drenched in his childhood friend's blood. No! Obedience confirmed. The cleanup timer activated once again. Bakugo fell to his knees, his mind racked with questions. Why did Midori have to keep his mouth shut? Why did that dumbass have to play hero and die? With him gone, and All Might having lost the use of One for All. Bakugo, get up. Oh, for the love of... Todoroki slapped the distressed blonde out of his downward spiral. Bakugo looked at Todoroki, seeing that the half-and-half boy looked just as distressed as he felt. The game's not over yet. Yeah, right. Once the bodies were collected and burned, the two returned to the main room. Both were anxious about the next order, for it may be the last. Fight or die. The last man standing wins. Bakugo and Todoroki were unsure of what to do at first. Todoroki couldn't help but chuckle. What's so funny, Icy Hot? Looks like you'll get that no-holds-barred fight after all. Yeah, looks like it. Bakugo smiled upon this realization. The boys walked a few paces away from each other before getting into fighting stance. They didn't want to initiate this mortal combat, but they weren't exactly given an option. This King's game started with 21 players, and now it was down to the final 2. As the king watched on from his hidden location, he smiled as he waited to see who would win his game. Todoroki was the first to take initiative, attacking with his fire as opposed to using his usual ice. Bakugo used his explosions to avoid the attack and charged at Todoroki with a barrage of explosions. The half-and-half team was quick to defend with an ice wall. The match continued to have an ebb and flow as each opponent switched from offensive to defensive at the drop of a hat. One might consider it a dance of death. Bakugo was using every trick and every move he had available to him, but Todoroki was countering and blocking nearly everything. The explosive blonde was starting to get desperate and exhausted. He tried getting close to attack with his AP shot. It was very risky, but it would be worth it if he could reap the rewards of survival. He was about to fire his shot at Todoroki's head when a shark-toothed smile flashed in his mind. This caused Bakugo to hesitate and give Todoroki an opening. The explosive blonde became trapped in ice. He couldn't find the strength to move or use his quirk to escape. Out of all the extras I could face and lose to, I'm glad it was you. Yeah, same here, Todoroki replied. Well, what are you waiting for? Finish it. At first, Todoroki hesitated. He had never seen the explosive blonde give up before. He raised his shaking left hand and held it a few centimeters away from Bakugo's face. Todoroki's breathing picked up pace as it began to sink in what he was about to do. His dread only got worse when Bakugo closed his eyes and accepted his fate. The half-and-half teen had turned away as he sent jets of flame at Bakugo. He pushed his flames hotter and hotter until they glowed a brilliant blue, and he didn't stop until the smell of burning flesh faded away. Although he'd regret it, Todoroki looked at his handiwork. There were no defining features of Bakugo left, just charred remains that went down to the bone. A red X appeared over Bakugo's portrait. Todoroki stood alone, the winner of the king's game. All power to the room shut down. Todoroki used his flames to illuminate his surroundings. He quickly realized he wasn't in the same space he and his deceased peers had been in for the past several hours. He was very wary of this place and was on high alert. The sudden sound of applause put him on edge as he sent fire towards the noise. A silhouetted figure batted the flame away with ease, only inconvenienced by the attack. Excellent show, Shoto Todoroki. You did well to beat my game. I was on the edge of my seat during that last order. And you must be the king I've heard so much about, Todoroki replied. A sourceless light appeared, casting a spotlight down on an interesting silhouette. The being was like a shadow, but more solid. It looked like a man with a crown on his head, though he didn't have any discerning facial features, or if a face at all. Todoroki could feel that man was smiling.
That is what I call myself, yes. Let me guess, you're going to ask why I did it, aren't you? Why did I make you and your dear classmates and teacher go through this harrowing endeavor, if you'll pardon the phrase?
Todoroki only scowled.
Judging by that frustrated and downright mean look you're giving me, I'm correct. Well, as the returning player you call Eraserhead said, I wanted to teach a lesson.
Todoroki was seething with anger. You've got some twisted teaching methods. Your lesson was either sometimes you only have the lesser of two evils to choose from, or good intentions could end poorly. Maybe a mix of both.
Those are good lessons. Really good, even. I should write those down later. But that wasn't what I was going for.
The king could easily read Todoroki's inner turmoil.
The main lesson I wanted to teach was more simple than you think. Some people are more willing to do anything in order to survive, even if it means killing those they hold dear. Some of your friends did things that seemed rather out of character, so you might want to keep that in mind.
The flame in Todoroki's left hand grew as his ire burned hot. Was all that suffering and death necessary for your lesson? 20 good people that I care about are dead because of you.
Unfortunately, some lessons can only be learned the hard way, and I found that pain is a rather good teacher. Now, I have one last order for you, Shoto Todoroki.
No! No more, you deranged jester! Fueled from the grief of losing everyone, Todoroki attacked the king with both his flames and his ice. But neither attack got within a meter of the king. His quirk fizzled out and stopped working. The half-and-half teen suddenly felt dizzy and weak. He fell to his knees, finding it difficult to keep his eyes open. Todoroki was helpless as the king approached him, step by methodic step.
Don't worry, Shoto Todoroki. It's a rather simple order, and I promise there will be no bloodshed for failure.
Once in front of the dazed boy, the king knelt down so he was face to face with his champion. He leaned in close and spoke softly. Wake up. Todoroki awoke in his dorm room in his bed. He felt the right side of his face and found no fresh burn. It looks like you've won the king's game. Todoroki snapped in the direction of the voice and saw Principal Nezu sitting calmly beside his bed. He couldn't find the words to convey his confusion or disbelief. You don't have to worry, Todoroki. The king can't get you here. Before Todoroki could make any inquiries, he heard the voices of the dead outside of his door. He quickly opened his door to find all of his peers alive and uninjured from the king's game. How? I saw you all die! The king's game was an elaborate dream, courtesy of a rather powerful quirk. Perhaps it would be best if everything was explained to all of you over some tea, Nezu offered. The traumatized 1A students sat quietly within the lobby of their dorm house. While Aizawa and Nezu were making tea for everyone, President Mike and Midnight spoke. When Mineta and Hagakure told me that they woke up from the king's game, I told them to get Midnight while I contacted Nezu. I then checked up on Eraserhead and some of you little listeners. It was about then that Kaminari woke up and mentioned the same game. President Mike started. I came by as soon as I could. At first I thought it was you kids pulling a prank. But after more details of what you experienced came to light, it was clear it wasn't a prank. Midnight added. There wasn't anything we could do to wake you guys up. And as far as we know, the only way to wake up from the king's game is to win, or fail the order. I just hope your game wasn't as bad as ours, Midnight added. Aizawa and Nezu entered the room and began to pass around the tea. The king managed to up the ante from our last game. This one was far worse than our first. Midnight and Present Mike winced at the prospect of the king making an even bloodier death game. I find the whole experience rather interesting. To go up against someone with such a twisted frame of mind. Perhaps I will find myself in a king's game one day. Nezu seemed a little too happy when he said that. Once everyone had their tea, their principal began to tell them what was known about the royal pain in the ass they had encountered. From what we understand, his quirk is known as the game. Although we don't know its distance limitations, we do know there has to be a minimum of 7 players for his quirk to be effective, but no more than 35. We also understand he can only mentally claim those who are asleep, which is why he didn't strike until the dead of night. Despite the unlawful use of his quirk, he doesn't just target heroes. We've also had reports of him targeting villains and mob families. Those villains that experience his game would always turn themselves in, stating that the king ordered them to do so and confess to their crimes. And yet, despite all the winners of various king's games, we don't know what he looks like. While in his game space, he can make himself look like anything or anyone. Nezu took a long sip of his tea. Aizawa then voiced his thoughts. Despite his methods being vile and horrible, they do gain results. I hate to say it, but my experience with the king's game helped me become the man I am now. But the king isn't a good man or a sane one. He is a deranged and twisted psychopath that needs to be taken down. I was hoping none of you would have encountered the king, and for that, I am sorry. I believe it would be fair to allow you guys to have a day off classes. Tomorrow, we'll ease back into things and hopefully put this behind us. You were all very brave and very strong, and I'm proud of you. Now, get some rest. I'm exhausted, so I'm sure some of you are too. Grateful for the time off they were given, the 1A students enjoyed their time being alive again. Some talked to their classmates about what they experienced and what they missed, while others were silent and kept to themselves. Todoroki retired to his room, thinking he might get some rest or work on his studies. He felt relieved that the king's game was just a dream. His room was the same as he had left it. His bed was unmade, but the rest of the room was clean. The lack of clutter made it easy for Todoroki to spot the folded piece of paper that lay on the floor. Curious, he picked it up. It wasn't like him to leave things scattered about. He felt his fight-or-flight response start to kick in as he opened the folded paper. Upon reading the note, Todoroki's breath hitched and his heart skipped a beat. He dropped the note as his mind was filled with despair. Congrats on winning. Thanks for playing. Signed, The King. And that's our video for the day, so thank you all for sticking around, and I hope you enjoyed it. Now, before I go, there's a little bit of housekeeping I want to go over with everyone. First, We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing pleasures. All the information you'll need is right below in the description, so please feel free to check out all the other incredible content our team creates. Second, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details are also in the description. So that's it for today's video. So thank you all for watching, and have a spooky day.